Welcome to Mile Ground Motors, where we specialize in used four-wheel drive pickups and SUVs. All vehicles are clearly marked and come with a free Carfax report. Fair, good, or excellent credit, we have the financing option for you. Mile Ground Motors, located on the Mile Ground in Morgantown. Always open at mileground.com.
At the Landing Dental Spa, our goal is to provide quality dental care at a relaxed spa-like atmosphere. Dental chairs with heat and massage, warm neck wraps, and personal TVs make your appointment as stress-free as possible. Located off the Pierpont exit, now accepting new patients of any age. Call 304-594-2200 today and visit our website at www.thelandingdentalspa.com to schedule an appointment. The Landing Dental Spa, a healthy smile with peace of mind.
We are privileged to have Senator Shelley Moore Capito, a tremendous and history-making servant who is a friend to so many across West Virginia. Shelley, I'm glad to count you as my friend as well. She may be a grad of Duke and the University of Virginia, but this Glendale, Marshall County native has spent a lot of time in Morgantown rooting for the Mountaineers. Sometimes she even brings a president to town. The senator has already accomplished so much, but as she noted in an interview in the March-April 2015 edition of North Central West Virginia magazine, she now has a more powerful voice from which to serve West Virginians. She's serving on 4 key committees: Appropriations, Energy and Natural Resources, Environmental and Public Works, and on Rules and Administration. Much has been written about our native daughter, Senator Shelley Moore Capito, especially as to the fact of which we are so proud, that she is history-making, the first female senator from West Virginia, and the first over 50 years has been since we've had a Republican senator from West Virginia. Senator Capito has accomplished much since first serving in West Virginia from the 31st District as a delegate, 1996 to the year 2000, when she ran for the Senate, and won in 2014. Now, it's been written that our founding fathers were well-bred, well-read, well-wed, and well-fed. Well-bred. Senator Capito's father, Art J. Moore, was a 3-time West Virginia governor and served in Congress for 12 years. The 2 Bibles that were used in your swearing in, one was the Bible her father carried during the war in World War II. The senator also points out that her mother served 3 times as First Lady, and that's a job with a lot of responsibility as well. Now, was she well-wed like the founding fathers? As Senator Capito had her hand on those 2 Bibles, it was her husband Charlie that was holding them. It's amazing. Although he is a very successful financial advisor in his own right, he seems to always be by her side everywhere. After college, she took a job at West Virginia State for a short period of time, but then she took 15 years off to raise 3 wonderful kids: Charles, Moore, and Shelley. Shelley's mother is Shelley, Shelley's daughter is Shelley, and Shelley is Shelley. How often do you ever hear that? Well-read. The senator read and reads a lot, as she was a pre-med major at Duke before changing her mind and getting a master's in counseling. Duke and the University of Virginia do have very good academic programs besides basketball. And we've always been on your side except 2010 in the Final Four, Shelley. Couldn't stick with you then. Well-fed, she's had nothing but a glass of water. Come to this podium and address us, please. Senator Capito.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That is a brisk welcome for a Tuesday morning following a 3-day weekend. So thank you all very much, and thank you, Dan, for the nice story about your mother. I spent yesterday in Glendale because we were doing the Memorial Day dedication, and we were also doing, they dedicated part of the street in Glendale and named it the Art J. Moore Jr. Boulevard, which of course my parents would have just loved. When he mentioned that his mother thought that my father walked on water. I'm sure Ed Flowers will remember my father's relationship with the Charleston Gazette, which my dad used to call the morning sick call. And anybody who has parents from World War II will know what the morning sick call is. Anyway, at my dad's funeral, it came out this story that I guess it was an article in the Gazette, and they had a cartoon of my dad walking across the canal, and they always pictured him in a king's robe because he thought he was the king, which probably did. And he was walking across the water, and he had his crown on and everything, and underneath it, it says, "Archmore can't swim." Anyway, that's the relationship of the Charleston Gazette with my dad. But it's great to be here in Morgantown, and Scott, thank you. It's always good to see you. What a great crowd. I'm honored to be the first woman ever elected from the state of West Virginia to be in the United States Senate. It's something I carry in my heart. You know, we always worry in West Virginia, are we the top of the list or the bottom of the list? Sometimes we worry about that. Guess what? There's still 24 more states that have never had a woman in the United States Senate. So we're right in the middle there, and I think that's a great tribute to our state, and I thank you for bestowing that honor upon me. Just to continue on that theme a little bit, there are, in the history of the country, there have been over 1,900 men elected to the United States Senate. There have been 46 women. I mean, that, I tell all the young daughters and granddaughters that I see, it's your generation that's got to increase those numbers, because 46 out of over 1,900, very small. So I'm privileged to be in a small club. There are 20 of us now in the Senate, which is the most that there's ever been at one time. So almost half the people who've ever served women are there now. And we do, you read a lot about us as a group, bipartisan group. We do have dinners together. There are 3 rules that you're not allowed, I can't remember all of them, I sound like Rick Perry, but one of them is you're not allowed to talk about what you're not supposed to talk about your colleagues. Sure. I mean, a bunch of women in a room, what are we going to talk about? But you're not allowed to, to say what goes on. But anyway, it's been a real privilege for me to become part of that even smaller club that exists in the United States Senate. I'm here to tell you that things are better in the United States Senate. Scott said that I ran because I wanted a more powerful voice for West Virginia. A lot of times people ask me, what's the big difference between being in the House and being in the Senate? Being one of 435 as opposed to being one of 100 is a massive difference. However, the voice of a United States Senator, as you see, if you watch it closely, one person can throw the whole thing into a tailspin. Because one senator's voice can either start something, or more importantly, can stop something. So for instance, last week, when we were considering the foreign surveillance issue on the Patriot Act, you saw Senator Rand Paul, who's a libertarian who wants to throw this surveillance protocol totally out the window. Rand Paul got up and gave a 10-hour mini filibuster because he doesn't believe in it and he wanted to stall it out. So that shows the power of one person. When you think, well, that's just 10 hours. But the Senate has rules that everything has to stay on the floor for a certain period of time, certain hours. And I've heard Senator McConnell say more than once the most precious time for the United States Senate is floor time. So taking up 10 hours of floor time is pretty significant. So I think I do have that more powerful voice in the Senate. I can feel it. I don't think I know the full extent of it yet. I think that's part of the learning process. But I certainly want to flex my wings and make sure, and I think I already have a little bit. We were talking earlier with the Department of Commerce. So anyway, my committee assignments are terrific, I think, for the state of West Virginia. I'm on the Appropriations Committee. We as West Virginians are very familiar with senators on the Appropriations Committee. I'm expecting every bridge to be named after me. Not really. They'd go, is that Capito or Capito? But I'm teasing about the naming. I don't want anything named after me. But Senator Byrd obviously was a very forceful and prominent member of the Appropriations Committee. Appropriations has changed. We all know that. For those of you, and many of you I do know, have government contracts or working on government contracts. The ability to earmark, a personal senator to be able to earmark, which is what Senator Byrd was very masterful at doing. We cannot do that anymore. It's against the rules to individually direct money towards specific projects. So people think, well, that means all of our projects are going to dry up. Well, I think the high-tech corridor is an example of that's not the case. It's the cream rises to the top in this. The good projects are going to get funded. The well-researched ones, the ones that have a broad base and are job creating, those are the projects, or whatever, if it's in education, the ones that are successful, those are the projects that are going to keep getting funded. So what I say to West Virginians who I talk to all the time about this is, let's make sure our applications are the best applications, that we have proof that it works, we have the best people working for us, and that we are open-minded in terms of partnerships and collaboration. You know, we have an $18 trillion debt. We got to get a hold of it. And one of the ways we're getting hold of it is to squeeze on our spending. That there again, that just means the good projects. As a taxpayer, that's what you want. The good projects are going to move forward. And you see, like an economic engine like West Virginia University, I know that President Gee has worked with his staff and many others to try to maximize the potential of those federal dollars coming here into Morgantown and into WVU. And I know they've had that as success in the past, but they're really working to try to maximize it, and we're going to work in partnership with them. So that's my, I'm a chairman of an appropriations committee because I'm the highest ranking freshman because I've been in for 14 years. They rank you according to your legislative service. So I'm number 88 in the Senate. So I get the lowest ranking, this sounds kind of convoluted, but the lowest ranking appropriations committee, which is the legislative branch. So I get to work on the appropriations for the Senate and the House. If you've been to the Capitol recently, you've noticed there's a major renovation of the Capitol Dome. That's within my purview because that's the architect of the Capitol is moving through there. So I'm working with all of my fellow senators. I have a little power over them because I got a little power over the purse over the senators. It also is Capitol Police, so the gyrocopter that came in and landed on the Senate or the Capitol lawn. We had some stern discussions on how did the gyrocopter get all the way down the mall onto the lawn of the Capitol. And you've read the stories, but the guy was going very slowly and lowly, and he made it all the way. To make a statement about campaign finance reform, I could have thought about a few other ways to do that, but nobody asked me. Anyway, I do that. My other committees, I'm on Environment and Public Works. Obviously, West Virginia, we read last week, very sad day, I think, on Friday, with 2,200 of our coal miners received notice that they may not be working, either in 60 days or immediately. I mean, this is like the constant drumbeat. Thousands and thousands of West Virginian miners, coal miners, are out of jobs and with a bleak future. The president has put forward something called the Clean Power Plan, which is his climate change agenda. And I countered with the major Senate vehicle, which will be, it's called the ARENA Act, My ARENA Act. I have 30 senators on there that basically says, let's figure out a better way to reach maybe a goal that the president wants to reach. And so the ARENA Act has several aspects to it. It has, this is all in the court systems as to whether the president has overreached in his executive authority. I personally think that he has. But the courts are going to decide. He's done executive order after executive order in different arenas. This one, and the particular one, as opposed to EPA, is one where I'm saying, and many of my colleagues are saying, the courts are going to decide whether the president has overstepped his constitutional authority in this area. I would say Congress needs to act as opposed to the president needs to regulate. And so my ARENA Act said, let's wait till the courts decide if he has overstepped his authority or not before we go ahead and put into the multi-million-dollar decisions of closing down numerous coal plants. We know that every coal plant in the state of West Virginia does not meet the metrics the president has set out. The other thing he sets out in his Clean Power Plan is he has a metric for carbon capture and sequestration, which is not achievable. It has never been achieved. The Southern Company has a huge plant down in Mississippi that's one of the supposed to be cutting-edge carbon capture and sequestration plants. It's over $3 billion over, and their biggest contract just pulled out last week. So these technologies, that's where WVU comes in. That's where Nettle comes into play. Let's move forward with the research and development. We can do this before we go ahead and make drastic changes that's going to, I think, disturb the reliability of the electrical grid. It will most certainly raise our electrical prices by over 30%. And I think it will also be an economic harm to areas such as ours. So we're moving forward. My ARENA Act is my answer to the President's Clean Power Initiative. Natural gas, I just came from Glendale, as you can say. Scott and I were just talking. You can't go up Route 2. I mean, I'm originally from Moundsville, Glendale area. I mean, it's amazing. If you don't think an energy economy is a jobs economy, go to the Northern Panhandle. If you were in Moundsville 10 years ago, go back and see what's happened. I jokingly say you can't even get a coffee through the drive-through at McDonald's anymore. But that's how crowded it is. And it's a really great thing to see, because as you know, the Northern Panhandle was steel country for this state for many, many years. And when the steel industry dried up in Pittsburgh, it dried up in West Virginia. Weirton Steel is a shadow of its former self. It's not even its former self, but it's in terms of employment. Wheeling has really suffered and on down through there, but you can see it flourishing, growing, and the nice thing is it's an organic thing. Everybody's sharing from it. It's not just companies coming in from Oklahoma and Texas and taking the resource and going, but I want to see us maximize the resource. Which leads me to my other committee, which is energy. We do a lot of natural gas in the Energy Committee. Lisa Murkowski is the chair over there. We passed the Keystone Pipeline right away, bipartisan. We were this shy of a override of a presidential veto. The president vetoed it. He said he would. I cannot understand, in my view. It's a job creator. It's a friendly country. It's energy independence. Is it everything anybody would want it to be? Probably not, but it's significant. And if there's one thing we've discovered with this energy renaissance we've had in this country, is we don't have the infrastructure to move these resources successfully. And so I think we see what Dominion's trying to permit their pipeline going down through central West Virginia into Virginia into North Carolina, and they're having some problems with it. These are issues that are critical, I think, to moving the resource. We can do this, but we've got to do it in a time frame that makes sense so that investors are going to want to invest. And so I think that we have a wonderful opportunity in this country to be energy independent. My husband, we were driving up Route 2 yesterday, he was like harping on this, and I'm like, can we talk about the kids or something? But anyway, we really have an opportunity here in West Virginia and in the country to become energy independent. We see all the unrest going on overseas. Why don't we choose to grab it and go? And I think in West Virginia, it would really help us. Our coal industry suffering, natural gas can really pull us out of this. I see Chris sitting there, so I can't talk about anything. I have to talk about health care a little bit. I am extremely proud the fact that, and for those of you not in health care, but if we have any physicians in the room, you'll be thrilled to know we finally did the major fix on what's called the SGR, which is the sustainable growth rate, which every year Congress was reappropriating every year billions of dollars to get over this 26% cut reimbursement to our doctors from Medicare. Think about what that does for West Virginia. And every year we were fixing it, patching it, patching it, patching it. This year, bipartisan, through the House, through the Senate, the President signed it, we permanently fixed a major problem. Now, it didn't get a whole lot of press, but it is, believe me, it is a truly major accomplishment. So there's two. We got the Keystone, we got the fix to the SGR. We passed a balanced budget for the first time in 10 years in the United States Senate. 10 years they haven't passed a balanced budget. 5 years they haven't passed a budget. For some reason, Senator Reid, Harry Reid, who was the leader in the Senate, thought, I think, although I haven't actually asked him, I think, that it was more politically better for him and his majority to not have votes and to not have a budget and to not express an opinion. Well, I think all of you would rather see what my opinion is and then make a judgment as to whether you want to send me back to the Senate or not, rather than to have me be in the no opinion state. And I think you see what happened. The leadership changed, and I think that was a direct result of a lot of unhappiness with just stalemate, gridlock, nothing getting done. And so I think there's a lesson, life's lesson there. You know, if you're standing still, you're losing. So you got to keep moving forward. And by moving forward, I mean putting things on agenda, offering amendments, offering opinions, having debate, and then let the chips fall. And that's what we're doing right now. As much as we can, we're doing it, and we're working hard on that. Highway bill. Well, this is one I can't give myself a golden star on. The highway bill goes into the EPW. For those of you who aren't aware of it, it's a 6-year bill. It's a highway reauthorization. We haven't reauthorized it in the 6-year time frame for probably, is there an expert in the room? 10 years maybe? It's been a long time. It's up for reauthorization. We just did a 2-month patch. Well, you can't tell Governor Tomlin and Secretary Maddox that you can build a highway program on a 2-month patch. We know that. We want to see Quarter H finished. We want to see Route 35 finished. We want to see the traffic in Morgantown better. How's that? Yeah. When I was campaigning, I went into a room of folks from Morgantown who didn't know me very well, didn't know I had a sense of humor, and I said, I think what I'm going to do is promise you that I'll solve the traffic problems in Morgantown. And they're like clapping, and I'm thinking, just kidding, I don't know if I can do that. I don't think I can do that. I'd like to try, Mayor, let's try. So anyway, there she is. So anyway, we have a 2-month patch. Hopefully after that, we've got to have a big and broad. It's a jobs bill again. That's American jobs. People, construction company, all kinds of companies, trucking companies are going to be building the roads, repairing the bridges. They just came out with a study in West Virginia of how deficient our bridges are and how much work we need on our highways. We all know that. Potholes aside, we had a rough winter, we get that. But this is major construction, and I want to see it move forward. The problem is the funding. It's funded by gas tax, a federal gas tax. Well, our vehicle's more efficient, so we don't have as much money in the highway trust fund. Same thing's happening at the state trust fund. So we've got to find another mechanism to fund this. I'm on a couple bills that say, you know, you hear about these corporations who are keeping their money overseas. And they want to bring it back to, these are multinational corporations, a lot of American corporations. It's called repatriation. Let's bring in the dollars from, let's have a favorable rate for those companies to bring their dollars in, because they won't bring it in at 35%. Bring it into this country and dedicate it to an infrastructure bank. Sounds like a good idea. We're moving forward on some of this. I'd like to see us do full-out tax reform, and I think a lot of you in this room would like to see that, because you need the certainty of what your taxes are going to be as we move through the years. I don't see us doing full-out tax reform before the end of the year. Stranger things have happened, but I think that's such a massive undertaking, I don't see how we get there. But I think there's a lot of Republicans and Democrats would like to see us do massive tax reform. Let me look through my notes here and see. Well, we've got a big decision, back to healthcare very quickly, and then I'll open it up for questions, if that's okay. At the end of June, when there's 3 things happening at the end of June. One is the expiration of the XM Bank, which is becoming quite a political football. What it is, it's the Export-Import Bank. It helps companies when they're investing overseas. Has anybody here ever used the XM Bank in their businesses? Actually, I ran into a guy in Wheeling, small business, who uses it as a guarantee. In other words, the XM Bank will guarantee that if he does business in Ecuador, that he's going to be able to get paid in a timely fashion so he can pay his bills. So but it also, the controversy is 80% of the money, 80% of the dollars are going to big companies like Boeing and a lot of conservatives and people who think this is corporate welfare from the taxpayers. So we're going to see a big discussion here. I have voted to reauthorize the XM Bank before, but I want to see what form it would come before us before I make that commitment this time. So we have XM Bank. We have the Iran sanction. The Iran nuclear treaty is due the end of June. Congress is going to weigh in on that. We passed it bipartisan. That's 3 big accomplishments. We're going to weigh in on whether the president's Iran nuclear, I'm calling it a treaty, but agreement is in our best interests. I don't see how he gets there with a country like Iran, who's all over helping ISIS and terrorizing all nations around, at least around the Middle East. And then the other thing is the King versus Burwell decision on Obamacare, or the Affordable Care Act. Without getting into the weeds on that, basically what that says is, in the law, it says, and I got to get this right, if you have a state plan, which we don't. How many states have plans? 14? Something like that. 14 states have state plans. Kentucky has a state plan. If you get your insurance on the state plan and not on the federal exchange, if you get subsidized here, you're okay. If you're the other 36 states that gets a subsidy because of how much you make from the federal exchange, it is not explicit in the law saying that you're entitled to that subsidy. So what could happen is the Supreme Court could say, Congress only meant for you to get a subsidy if you were in an exchange by the state, but if you are in an exchange, the federal exchange, your subsidy is illegal or unconstitutional. That will be a massive decision, because all these people, millions of people, will lose their subsidies. They may figure out a way they don't lose them right away. I certainly hope. I don't want that to happen. So Senator Barrasso, who I brought to Morgantown in August, who's a physician, who's a senator, who's working on a plan that we're working on together to try to figure out, we see it as an opportunity. I voted against the Affordable Care Act. We see it as an opportunity to reshape it, to get rid of the business and individual mandate, to reinstate the 40-hour work week, and to make sure that these people, the 140,000 people that are on Medicaid in West Virginia now because of the Affordable Care Act, that we have some transitional programs for them so that they don't fall off the insured list. So it's very complicated, it's very big, but it's going to be an enormous decision for the President's plan. And in a way, it'll bring a lot of certainty. However they decide, well, if they decide you're okay, whatever exchange you're on, that pretty much ices the deal in terms of moving forward. If they decide a federal subsidy is not constitutional, that will bring some uncertainty, but it also will say you got to go back to the drawing board and start over, and you better work with Congress to do it, because it's going to have to be done quickly. So that's where we are with a lot of the major issues. Let me drift through here. I think we voted a big trade bill out. If you ask me questions about it, I can answer that. I want to give time for questions. But I just want to close by saying, I started saying what an honor it is to be in the Senate, and it really is. I mean, I'm in the Russell Building. I finally got my main office, so if you came to see me in the double wide, I'm out of the double wide. That's a kind of a hazing they do. They put you in some temporary office. Mine was in the double wide, and I said, is that for a reason? Is that because I'm from West Virginia, you put me in the double wide? But I was the first one, because I'm the most senior freshman, to get out of the double wide, so I was happy about that. And the feeling I have moving from the House and the Senate is something that I think we can all identify in a lighthearted way. So when we were all in junior high, remember all the angst you had about going to high school? Because you're like, I've got all my friends here, and there's more people there, and I know the teachers, and I know the buildings, and I know everything, and I just don't think I want to go to high school. I'm kind of scared to go to high school. Well, that's me going to the Senate. So I get to the Senate, my first day of the Senate, first day of high school, I turn around and look at junior high, and I go, see ya. That's what it's like to be in the United States Senate. So thank you all very much. Keep up the good work. I know you're doing things that are great for job creation, it's just inspirational to come to Mon County, to Morgantown, to the whole general vicinity to see the energy, the youth, the innovation, the intellectual property businesses that are cropping up around here. I want to be your partner. I want to help you. Mary Elizabeth Eckerson is here with me. She's my state director. I also have Aaron Spork, who is I have an economic development director. He's in Charleston. He's great. If he hasn't been to see you, he will. And let's figure out the best way to maximize my potential, my new power, with your new power here in Morgantown. So thank you all very much. So any questions?
How are you doing with working with Joe Manchin and Walter? Are you all working together, or?
Joe and I are very good friends. We've known each other for a long time, and I think we work together well. We recognize where we have differences. We voted differently on the trade bill. We've worked on amendments together. We're on the Energy Committee together. We have each other's phone numbers, so we text one another. That's the key, I guess. But I'll tell you a funny story about how I first met Joe Manchin. Again, it goes back to my dad. My dad and Joe Manchin's dad were in college together. We're good friends. And my husband, Charlie, and I were living in a little house on Wilkie Drive in Charleston, and we wanted some new carpet. So I said to Dad, you know, do you know anybody who get us a good deal on carpet, Dad? You know, we were 22 years old. Oh yeah, my buddy Manchin, he's got a carpet store up there in Farmington. I said, okay, that'd be great. He goes, yeah, I'll see what I can do. Next thing I know, in comes Joe Manchin to measure my carpet in 1977. So we've known each other ever since. And I told Joe that story. I tell it a lot, and he thinks it's funny. He goes, I can measure it right now if you wanted me to. That sounds just like it, doesn't it? But quite honestly, everybody asked me too, was I surprised that he decided not to run for governor? I absolutely was not surprised at all. He's in a great position, I think, to be very helpful to the state. And he's in a pivotal position because of his political, as being one of the most conservative, if not probably the most conservative Democrat in the Senate, puts him in a position to get the 54 Republicans towards the 60 vote threshold that you need on many votes. And so, yes, we work well. Yes.
Mr. Capito, I'm Billy Atkins. I'm on the Chamber Board and the chair of our Transportation Committee. And for about 2 years, we've been working on efforts to try to improve our highways and infrastructure in the area because we recognize that's the biggest challenge we have for future economic growth in a part of the state that has real potential for future economic growth. I understand the challenges that they have on the federal level, but states and local, that's where we look for historically for the bulk of our money, and we're going to continue to do that, I suppose. But what's the likelihood of any meaningful legislation to really have a long-term program? I think at least most of the folks I talk to, Republicans and Democrats, say, look, we've got to have some kind of revenue. A lot of people say now is a great time to increase the gas tax. You're paying half of what we paid for gas 2 years ago. I know the mention of taxes is difficult in Washington, particularly for my Republican colleagues. So I guess I'm just looking for some potential future answers.
Well, one good thing I think is because we didn't reauthorize the program all the way to the end of the year, which we thought about until December, I think that gives us great hope that we can get that 6-year bill. There's a couple things that I think could work there. Number one, Senator Boxer, who is the ranking member on that committee, on my committee, Inhoff's the chair, she's leaving. And this would be a good legacy item for her. So we're going to keep telling her that this would be good for her to move forward. And I think she wants to. So I think we'll create a bill that has more possibilities on the public-private partnerships. You see Secretary Maddox using that. He's using it down at Route 35. He just let the contract on it. I think he's going to try to do that at Quarter H to complete that, which would be wonderful. And so the other thing is on the permitting side, to try to do more concurrent permitting on the NEPA and all the environmental permitting so you can get it done quicker, because the longer you draw it out, as you know, the more expensive it gets on the other end. Those are some of the, and any other innovative strategies that we can do there to shorten the time cycle and use our money better and more efficiently. I think Maddox has told me that he thinks that you could save money if you nail down now, and basically what he's doing is he's committing federal dollars that he really doesn't have quite yet to pay off into the future, which he will have those dollars, I'm sure. So I think in terms of the gas tax, the only way a gas tax would get raised, I think, is if it's in that big tax package that I was talking about, where you're really rearranging the deck chairs on everything. Remember, we did Bowles-Simpson or Simpson-Bowles, whatever it was called, about, and basically what that was taking out a lot of the deductions and special deductions and lowering the rate so that you would still end up having it basically revenue neutral, but you're lowering rates and scraping out some of the deductions. Well, the first thing that happened with that was, first of all, there's a bank tax in there. The banks didn't like that. Second of all, there's a rejiggering of the mortgage deduction. Well, a lot of people use that mortgage deduction. The other thing is the charitable deduction. A lot of people use that charitable deduction, and many of you, I'm sure, are nonprofits too. So what happens is you get into everybody's special little interest, and it becomes a problem. That's why you got to do big. That's why you got to go big. And it would be nice to me, and my dream would be nice to do this big tax package and then tie in entitlement reform at the same time, because we know Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid have a finite life over here that we need to really address. I will say, in the SGR fix was the first time we'd done Medicare reform in 20 years, 30 years. And all we did was means test it in the out years for people making, I think, over $250,000 a year. I mean, I just lived through, with my parents, all the Medicare, and what a wonderful program. You want to have that for your parents, for the caregivers too. But could my parents have afforded another $30, $40, $50 a month? Probably. And so I'm fine with that. I think that's a good way. So I'm optimistic that we can get there in 2 months by the end of July. I mean, I think it'll be a tough slog. We've just got to find the money for it. If we just voted up, straight up and down gas tax, raising the gas tax, it would fail miserably. It can't go on its own. And so I feel your frustration. We did get the water resource bill done at the end of last year, which were all the locks and dams here. You can see them here in Morgantown, up on the Mon, Ohio and down. That was a major undertaking. So we're going to keep plugging away. If you have any creative ideas, some of the ideas are GPS your car. I don't think in this environment people want government GPSing their cars and charging them per mile. I mean, I'm just going to say, I don't think that's going to fly. If we think 10 hours of Rand Paul was bad, what about, days of Rand Paul on that one? So anyway, thanks for your comments. We'll keep working it. Yeah.
Senator, I have a follow-up to Billy's question. My wife and I were just in D.C., and the infrastructure in D.C. is awesome. You can't find a nick in anything. I'm so proud our nation's capital looks like that. How is it funded?
Well, D.C. is funded by federal appropriations, and I think a lot of D.C. is monuments and historical preservation, and we do a good job with that. But interestingly enough, when the hurricane hit, or the earthquake hit in August of several years ago, remember the Washington Monument cracked. I mean, I thought, well, you're not going to be able to see this. These are going to be like mini cracks that you can't really see. I was running up that way. I looked up. These were big cracks in the Washington Monument. A private funder came in and paid for that to be repaired. David Rubenstein from the Carlyle Group, because he's big. He also did the National Archives. So there's a lot of private money in D.C. The Nats are doing well, so everybody's happy about that. And the Nats Park, if anybody's been there, it's a really beautiful baseball facility. Yes? Tolling is another thing that I think is going to be part of, would probably be part, it would be the state option, but I'll use Route 35 as an example, which, if you all don't know where that is, it comes in Point Pleasant, goes to Charleston. It was 39 miles of two-lane, very dangerous highway when I started. It's now 13 miles from Point Pleasant to Buffalo, or no, to, I can't remember to where, and then 13 miles to Buffalo, still two-lane, and then Buffalo to into Winfield, 13 miles completed. So there's just that 13-mile gap. To get it completed about 4 years ago, they wanted to toll it. I mean, the community went nuts. And so so tolling is, I mean, I think it has its merits, but the general public, it's hard to get that through in a general, well, they were going to toll it for $4, which is a lot for 39. It's like the Greenway is, if you've ever been there up in D.C. That's a private road, though. It's very expensive. How about last question? If you're going to Clarksburg to the Chamber of Commerce, you're probably going to hear about the same thing, so you could skip it and go home.
commented a lot about how with the new leadership, you would be working closely with our state officials, and I've heard you talk about a lot of things like roads. Do you continue in those efforts with Senator Cole and Speaker Armstead?
Yeah, Senator Cole and Speaker Armstead, obviously I know them very well. We've talked a lot. You know, they have their challenges in terms of first time kind of working the wrinkles out of leadership since 1926, I think, Republican leadership in the House and Senate. And sometimes it's not as easy as it looks. I think probably what Tim Armstead, particularly in the House of Delegates, would say. You would think with the 63 vote margin, he could pretty much roll whatever they wanted. But everybody has a different opinion, and I think the House of Delegates semi-reflects Congress, our Republican Party in Congress. We have some middle-of-the-roaders, some conservative, then we've got some real libertarians that really can, or some people call them Tea Party, people who really have different beliefs. I think he ran into that a little bit. I thought they did a really good job. They loaded it up early with their business reforms, which they said they were going to do. I think that was smart, and the governor signed it. So I think, all in all, I think they did a great job. We talk about it a lot. They did pass one bill that I think is going to be an interesting interplay with the president's Clean Power Plan, because the president says in his Clean Power Plan that states have to submit a plan to the EPA on how you're going to meet the metrics of lowering your carbon levels by 2020 and then 2030. The legislature passed a law that said the governor cannot submit a plan to the EPA without the approval of the West Virginia legislature. So that's going to be a tough hill to climb. It may be that the governor doesn't submit a plan at all. And I think there'll be several other states that won't. Well, Oklahoma's already said they're not going to submit a plan. But there again, this is still in the courts. There's still lots of this to be worked out. Well, thank you all very much. Have a great morning.
Good morning, everyone. I'll just keep you another minute or two. I was standing in the back of the room and just kind of taking in everyone that's here and realizing how fortunate we are to live in Morgantown, West Virginia, and the surrounding area. We live in an area and work in an area that boasts a world-class healthcare system. We've got great hospitals, great doctors and nurses, and great healthcare providers. We're the envy of so many areas in this country. We have economic development. We have people leading business initiatives and bringing business to this area and this region. People really recognize what's going on in Morgantown, West Virginia, not just here, but all around the country. And I think sometimes maybe we take that for granted, what a special place we're able to live and work in, raise our children in. But we're also privileged to have a senator that represents us so well. A couple of years ago, I had the opportunity to be a part of the American Bankers Association annual conference, and then Congresswoman Capito was chairing the House Financial Services Committee, and she spoke as the keynote speaker to the American Bankers Association. And everyone was coming up to me throughout that session and telling me how fortunate I was and we are to have then Congresswoman, now Senator Capito, to represent us. Please give her a hand again. Would like to thank our sponsors, just to name a few here. West Virginia University's College of Business and Economics, right back here. Give them a hand, please. Appreciate all that they do. Montague County Republicans as well. Scott Road Truck is always so generous to our community, so give Scott a hand as well. West Virginia United Health System. Dr. Kalinda's here. West Virginia University Healthcare as well. Please give those folks a hand. And First United Bank and Trust. Thank you so much for your generosity in sponsoring us. I also want to thank Ashley Odell and the Government Affairs Committee for all of their hard work. We continue to try to produce opportunities for you to come out and meet your elected officials. I want to encourage you to do that. Senator Capito, I'd like to ask you, though, for a favor. One of the things that you could do for us is open doors and maybe invite us to come to Washington and to meet with companies that might want to consider locating a facility here or bringing jobs to West Virginia. Invite us to come up and meet with those folks and let us tell them how great of a place this is to work and live and to raise a family, and we'd like to do that. So with that being said, thank you all for coming and have a great day.
At the Landing Dental Spa, our goal is to provide quality dental care at a relaxed spa-like atmosphere. Dental chairs with heat and massage, warm neck wraps, and personal TVs make your appointment as stress-free as possible. Located off the Pierpont exit, now accepting new patients of any age. Call 304-594-2200 today and visit our website at www.thelandingdentalspa.com to schedule an appointment. The Landing Dental Spa, a healthy smile with peace of mind.
Welcome to Mile Ground Motors, where we specialize in used four-wheel drive pickups and SUVs. All vehicles are clearly marked and come with a free Carfax report. Fair, good, or excellent credit, we have the financing option for you. Mile Ground Motors, located on the Mile Ground in Morgantown. Always open at mileground.com.